The void between stars had never felt more pregnant with possibility than it did on that Tuesday morning, when Ambassador Sarah Chen pressed her palm against the observation deck's cold, transparent steel window, watching the distant pinprick of Epsilon Eridani grow steadily brighter. Humanity's greatest moment approached with the inexorable certainty of orbital mechanics, and Chen felt the weight of 7 billion souls pressing against her shoulders like the artificial gravity that kept her feet planted on the UN vessel Harmony's polished deck. The ship itself represented the pinnacle of human engineering and cooperation, a testament to what Earth's fractious nations could achieve when united by a purpose greater than their ancient grievances. Its sleek hull adorned with the flags of every nation that had contributed to its construction, a mosaic of human diversity that would soon meet something utterly alien. The first contact protocols had been rehearsed 10,000 times in simulations, each scenario more elaborate than the last, yet Chen knew that no amount of preparation could truly ready them for what lay ahead. The Cathurian Collective's initial transmission had arrived 18 months ago, a burst of mathematical elegance that had set every radio telescope on Earth ringing like struck bells, its message encoded in the universal language of prime numbers and physical constants that transcended any linguistic or cultural barriers. The aliens had proposed these neutral coordinates, halfway between their claimed territory and the outer edge of human-explored space, as a meeting ground where neither species would hold advantage, a gesture that Earth's xenopsychologists had interpreted as profoundly encouraging. Chen turned from the window to survey her delegation, 37 of humanity's finest minds assembled in the Harmony's conference room, their faces reflecting a mixture of excitement and barely controlled terror that she suspected mirrored her own expression. Dr. Marcus Webb, the chief xenobiologist, hunched over his tablet running last-minute simulations of atmospheric compatibility, while Lieutenant Colonel James Harrison reviewed security protocols with his team, their movements precise despite the tremor Chen detected in his usually steady hands. The cultural attaché, Professor Yuki Tanaka, carefully arranged the ceremonial gifts they would present, her fingers lingering on the golden record that contained Earth's music, languages, and images, a compressed anthology of human achievement that seemed suddenly inadequate when faced with the prospect of beings who had mastered interstellar communication. The Cathurian vessel appeared first as an anomaly in the ship's sensors, a distortion in spacetime that resolved into something that challenged human preconceptions about spacecraft design. Where the Harmony embodied functional elegance with its rotating sections and solar panels spread like wings, the Cathurian ship seemed to flow through space like liquid mercury given form, its surface rippling with patterns that hurt to observe directly, as if the vessel existed in more dimensions than human eyes could properly process. The alien craft matched their velocity with disturbing precision, maintaining exactly 10,000 kilometers distance, a spacing that Chen's team had calculated would allow for communication while preventing any possibility of surprise attack, though she wondered if such human concepts of safety meant anything to beings whose nature remained utterly mysterious. The first exchange followed the predetermined protocols perfectly, almost anticlimactically so. The Cathurians transmitted a sequence of prime numbers, which humanity answered with the Fibonacci sequence, establishing a mathematical dialogue that gradually increased in complexity until both sides had demonstrated their understanding of fundamental physics and mathematics. Chen watched the data stream on her console, finding an odd comfort in the universal nature of mathematics, the one language that required no translation, no cultural context, just pure logic that bridged the gap between worlds. The Cathurians then transmitted what Chen's linguistics team identified as a greeting, rendered in carefully modulated electromagnetic pulses that formed patterns resembling Earth's own attempts at universal communication, suggesting they had studied humanity's previous broadcasts into space, perhaps listening to Earth's radio emissions for decades or centuries. The visual contact came next, and Chen felt her breath catch as the main screen flickered to life, revealing the Cathurian ambassador for the first time. Zykes-Theta, as the being identified itself through mathematical notation that roughly translated to its designation, defied easy description, its form seeming to shift and flow like living glass, with what might have been sensory organs or communication appendages arranged in patterns that followed no bilateral symmetry familiar to Earth's biology. The alien's presence filled the screen with an otherworldly grace that was simultaneously beautiful and deeply unsettling, its surface reflecting light in ways that suggested it might not be entirely solid, or perhaps solid in ways human physics hadn't yet discovered. The ceremonial exchange of gifts proceeded with the formal precision of a diplomatic ballet, each movement choreographed to avoid any gesture that might be misconstrued as threatening. Chen personally carried the golden record to the designated neutral zone, a small automated shuttle that would ferry the gift to the Cathurian vessel, her hands steady despite the magnitude of the moment. The record contained greetings in 55 Earth languages, music from every inhabited continent, and images carefully selected to represent humanity's diversity without revealing strategic information about Earth's defenses or exact location. Though Chen suspected beings capable of interstellar travel had little difficulty determining such details. In return, the Cathurians sent a crystalline data matrix that pulsed with internal light, its facets containing what preliminary scans suggested was a vast archive of information, though humanity's computers could only decode the outermost layers of its complex structure. The first hint of discord emerged when Zykes-Theta began explaining the nature of Cathurian society, its words translated through the mathematical communication protocol into concepts that Chen struggled to fully grasp. The collective, as Zykes-Theta described it, operated through instantaneous neural consensus, billions of individual nodes thinking as one vast mind that spanned multiple star systems. Each decision reached through a harmony of thought that occurred faster than light itself. Individual Cathurians existed only as temporary manifestations of the collective will, their consciousness flowing back into the whole upon completion of their tasks, a cycle of unity and dissolution that the aliens presented as the highest form of evolution, beyond the crude biological limitations of singular minds trapped in isolated flesh. Chen felt a chill run through her as she processed the implications, her diplomatic training warring with a deep, instinctive revulsion at the concept of surrendering individual consciousness to a collective overmind. She carefully explained Earth's decision-making process, how humanity's various nations would need to be consulted before any technology exchanges or formal treaties could be established, emphasizing that while she spoke for Earth in this moment, she could not unilaterally commit her species to agreements without the consent of its diverse governments and peoples. The mathematical translation matrix struggled with concepts like democracy and individual rights, requiring multiple iterations before the ideas could be rendered in forms the Cathurians might understand. Zykes-Theta's response sent ripples of alarm through the human delegation. The aliens' form shifted into patterns that their xenopsychologist later identified as possible confusion or distress, its communication taking on harmonics that felt wrong even through the sterile medium of mathematical translation. The collective, speaking through Zykes-Theta, expressed horror at the revelation that Chen did not possess absolute authority, that she was merely one voice among billions rather than a true representative of her species' unified will. The situation deteriorated with frightening rapidity when Zykes-Theta announced its intention to establish direct neural contact with Chen to verify her authenticity. Filaments of living light began to extrude toward the communication screen. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison's security team reacted instinctively, hands moving to weapons as they interpreted the action as an attempted assault. The drawing of weapons triggered an immediate response from the Cathurian vessel. Its flowing surface crystallized into defensive configurations, Zeichstätter's communications filled with references to contamination, disease, and quarantine. The collective reached consensus in microseconds. Chen's attempts to explain personal sovereignty and individual consent only deepened the chasm. To the Cathurians, individuality was a cognitive disease. The collective announced its intention to liberate humanity through forced integration. Lieutenant Rodriguez stepped forward and volunteered to undergo integration, believing that understanding human consciousness from within might avert catastrophe. The transformation began the moment Zeichstätter's filaments made contact. The transformation lasted exactly 73 seconds. When it ended, the thing that had been Rodriguez turned to face the delegation. His voice spoke of unity. His mind was no longer human. Both delegations recoiled. Chen ordered an immediate withdrawal. The harmony fled the coordinates. Humanity was declared quarantined. The journey back to Earth passed in stunned silence. The final report recommended the cessation of all first contact protocols. Chen never returned to space.